4 billion years ago, the Earth's oceans were formed. From these waters, all life on Earth began. When these seas evolved, its waters gave birth to our planet's weather. 50,000 years ago, the last ice age ended. As the glaciers melted, the Great Lakes were formed. On Lake Erie, a unique body of water, a bay, was formed. This bay was the refuge for the abundant fish and wildlife that populated the lake. Water meets wind, and wind meets water. There are a lot of memories here. And if these walls could talk, oh, what stories they could tell. As children, we would play hide and seek in here. Many sailors came through these hallways. We're here for one reason. The love of life. I had my first boat ride in June 1939. When I was 1 month old, I was sailing in a crib. It was lashed onto the boat.
The cups included. Good race yesterday.
Ladies and gentlemen, on this 27th day of May 2024, we who are gathered at this place in time, entrusted with the fate and future of our club, and to honor the lives lived of our fallen members. At the Erie Yacht Club, it is our custom to honor our deceased members who have crossed the bar since our last opening day. Today we pause to remember Mary Ann Bruger, Sarah Frank Heinzenreiter, Arthur Schmaltz, Doyle Hennig, Timothy Runnigan, David Vincent, Curtis Annister, Jack Castleson.
The Erie's natives that gave the lake and the city of Erie its name were already assimilated by the Seneca Nation when a French expedition from Montreal discovered and named this body of water Presque Bay. The French, British, and frontier Americans built forts here, and it was on Erie's bayfront Daniel Dobbins built the American fleet that fought a crucial battle in the War of 1812. The U.S. victory against the British fleet guaranteed the Great Lakes states would become part of America. And in 1795, a new city was surveyed and laid out, and a settlement by European Americans began in Erie. In 1895, the Statue of Liberty was delivered to New York Harbor. In 1895, the city of Erie celebrated its 100th anniversary. The same year, the Yacht Club was formed. George Bliss sent out a memo and a note to about 50 people who were interested in boating, perhaps a club. Those folks gathered up and they decided they wanted a yacht club. The second clubhouse was a beautiful building. There was a wonderful front lawn that looked over the water. The new yacht club, that when it was built in 1968, was on reclaimed land because that was all fill. With the passage of the 18th Amendment, also known as the Volstead Act, nationwide prohibition was underway. In 1916, Miles Brown Kitts was elected mayor of Erie, and Erie became a wet city. There was countless speakeasies, as well as 50 brothels in Erie. Because of Erie's close proximity to Canada, illegal rum-running was big business in the Erie region. The Erie Yacht Club lost a major portion of the club's revenue from the bar sales. There was also rumors of a speakeasy established in the canoe house on the property. Happy days are here again. Franklin D. Roosevelt ran for president in 1932 on a platform calling for prohibition to end. Acting Secretary of State William Phillips signs the 21st Amendment ending prohibition.
Going down this road feeling bad.
When the Depression hit, membership dwindled. Money got tight. Club bills were overdue. The club almost went bankrupt. Fortunately, one member, Commodore Lawrence M. Nagel, gifted money to the club to keep it going.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
From 1941 to 1945, 50 members of the Erie Yacht Club became part of the United States Armed Forces. They served in the Pacific Theater and Europe. Many of these members served with distinction. Most members of the club and their visitors don't realize that all of the club grounds, the clubhouse, the roads and parking lots, and docks were under 3 feet of water before the second clubhouse was built at the foot of Ravine Drive. Since 1917, when the second clubhouse was built. Through the 1990s, many hundreds of truckloads of fill have been dumped into the Presque Bay to form the club grounds that exist today. The club would welcome fill from anywhere it could get it. The east wall of the club sits on the rubble of the old City Hall, which was built in 1895, and the Lawrence Hotel, then located at 10th and Peach Streets, which opened in 1913. During his campaign for president in 1960, John F. Kennedy toured Erie. It was in front of the Lawrence Hotel that JFK addressed a large crowd on the 28th of September, 1960.
And when Kennedy actually came to Erie to talk, I was a freshman at Gannon, walked out onto the park. He was at Perry Square to talk. And the other reason why I was inspired to go out there is they had 2 Kennedy girls on stage. One of them was Joyce Savacchio, and the other was my wife, Mary Ann.
The first boat built in Erie was the sloop Washington, launched on September 15, 1798. Daniel Dobbins built Perry's fleet in 1813.
Boat builders here that you can think of, like Nolan, for example, who still has one of his original boats, welded steel, out at Presque, taking people on rides.
We had Lund and Pash. Harold at State Street built 2 boats for the New York Yacht Club. Herman Lund was born in Denmark and moved to Erie roughly 1910. He started working for Pash. In the rest of the world, he was thought of as one of the master boat builders. And his boats went all over the country. He built Enigma. He built the Eleanor III for Lawrence Nagel. He actually supervised the reconstruction of Niagara in 1913 after she was raised. And Herman rebuilt on the original bottom of the ship a new topsides on the shore of Misery Bay.
Following the Battle of Lake Erie in 1813, Misery Bay received its name from the hardships endured by U.S. sailors who spent a very miserable winter there.
And that replica was towed around the lakes by the Wolverine in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Lake Erie.
After the 100th anniversary tour, the Brig Niagara was placed at the foot of State Street, where she slowly rotted away. An exact replica of the brig was constructed and completed on July 18, 1990. The Erie Shipbuilding Company built over 35 different ships for the U.S. Navy during World War II. The shipbuilding property became the Niagara Pier Condos. The proud tradition of boat building continues today at Don John Shipbuilding and Repair. It is one of only 2 operational dry docks on all of the Great Lakes.
Boat building in Erie was incredibly important. The primary technology that drove this and has been picked up everywhere else is welded steel. And this was an epicenter of the technology because Lincoln Electric, the birth of welding, is in Cleveland. and they were out trying to figure out where can we sell welding, and shipbuilding was a logical place. So they came to Erie. One of the things you need when you have 100 fish tugs in your harbor that are local is you need boilermakers, pipe fitters, and you need the technology to make all that work. And where that technology spread from Erie, Pennsylvania was to the petroleum fields south of here. If it wasn't for the people that were the machinists and technical folks from Erie, that couldn't have happened. And the other more important place where it spread was to the plastics industry. So Erie, Pennsylvania was the place where injection plastics started in the United States. And it could only start here because to inject plastic and make something like a bottle top or whatever, you need a mold. And molds are made by mold makers, and mold makers are machinists. Came from the boating industry, all the pipe fitters, boiler makers, and all the guys that made those boats work. You could argue that commercial fishing was 20-25% of the primary, secondary, tertiary GDP in Erie, Pennsylvania. Well, we were once called the freshwater and fishing capital of the world. Lake Erie probably has about 17 or 18% of the water in the Great Lakes, but more like 75 or 80% of the fish. We have 10% of the water, 90% of the fish. At peak, between 1906, 7, 8, 9, there was more than 100 really, actually legitimate registered fish tugs in the harbor. There was probably always 40 or 50 renegades. People would come down here from Lake Huron because this is where the fish were. Also at peak, there were 16 processors in this town. They were gluttons, they were uncontrolled, and they were using technology that kept getting better and better and better. The catch just eroded. And one by one, species disappeared.
First World War ended on November 11, 1918. In 1918, the Spanish flu epidemic began. It killed over 50 million people worldwide. And telemedicine was invented.
COVID came at the end of 2019. COVID hit in a big way in Erie County. Deaths started to rise substantially.
I have today declared that the coronavirus presents a public health emergency in the United States.
Roll forward to March 16th of 2020, Governor Wolf at that point shut down the state. We shut down all our meetings. We had to learn how to do meetings virtually to run the club. And we had to also figure out what we were going to do in terms of putting boats into the water. Then the governor allowed us to launch recreational boats if we did appropriate crowd management. In the summer, we set up programs outside, socially distanced again. We put up vinyl shields between people so they could come and meet and do those kind of things. Finally, December, towards the end of my time as Commodore, the vaccine came out. We still had people waiting to become members. Our club membership not only is extremely loyal, they had a tremendous optimism about the future. And I attribute it to the wonderful members that we have. My great-grandfather was a boat builder back in Denmark. My grandfather was a boater. My father was a boater. And even my grandchildren are now in the Rayburn Sailing School doing their activities, which I remember as a Rayburn Sailing School 65 years ago.
1950. The Korean War began.
The New York Yankees, baseball champions of the world.
The Rayburn Sailing School was established in 1950. The founding members were Nat Rayburn and my sister-in-law, Louise Laisel.
2025 will be our 75th anniversary.
Learning to sail is definitely the main focus, and safety as well. They're also learning a lot of teamwork, how to cooperate with other kids, definitely how to be independent. It takes a lot to rig your own boat and to get on the water by yourself and a few friends.
When I started the school in 1970, I was 8. The club changed my life. It improved teamwork and working with others. I drew a love of teaching. I became a teacher, the sailing and the steering the boat, and I became a helicopter pilot in the Navy. And it's the reason I'm a member today. And then I grew to love sailing because I loved a race.
I love racing sailboats. There's a statement that goes, it's hours and hours of boredom interspersed by sheer terror.
Forward.
Boating to me is it's a passion, sailing and racing, and it's really the friendship that keeps that all together. This is one of the best clubs in the country. I know for a fact that you can go into the club and have a seat and sit down next to anybody and talk to them, whether they're a doctor, a lawyer, they own half the town, or they're wondering how to pay their next bill. The club brings families together.
My first ice boat ride in 1946, even at the age of 4, perceived power that the sail developed. You don't sail all the time, you stop and talk to your friends. Or in the 50s, when we were sailing stern steerers out of the yacht club, we'd stop when we'd see somebody and talk, and it was quite a social thing. A lot of friendships were formed socializing out on the ice. It brought friends together, it brought families together. In fact, that's where I met my wife, out on the ice. Pretty much I stuck with sailing a stern steerer all my life, 78 years. It's the speed, the acceleration.
In 1986, we were getting towards the end of our lease. End result was we really needed to buy the property. So Commodore Jim Owen and I went to the mayor's office to negotiate. And he said, I have an offer for $750,000. We would be glad to pay $450,000. He said, $550,000. We hesitated, and he, without blinking an eye, said, you wouldn't want to screw this deal up for $135. Remember. And I said, done deal. We shook hands, and that was over.
Hi. Happy New Year, January 1st, 1995. Today we're having the traditional New Year's Day Tom and Jerry party. an opportunity for the Erie Yacht Club officers to wish all of the members a Happy New Year by buying them what has become a traditional Tom and Jerry New Year's Day drink.
Good morning, come on in. I'm David Brig, this is my shop. I've been working here for the last 61 years making sails. I started working here in 1965 in my family boathouse. And strange to say, I first learned sail trim on a ride at Waldemare, the flying scooters. And you were in a pod that revolved on a framework. It had an air rudder that you controlled with your right hand so that you could steer it as you were going around in circles, and you could soar up high and then dive into the middle. And it was on that ride that I really learned sail trim. I became a sailmaker because from the age of 4 I was fascinated by sails. My first ice boat ride in 1946, even at the age of 4, perceived the sail coming about and setting on one tack and another tack, and the power that the sail developed. I look at a sail as a foil that deflects the wind, and by deflecting the wind generates a force that drives the boat forward. How do you make a sail? What we're going to focus on mainly is the mainsail. From the sail plan, we get the dimensions of the edges and the diagonal measurement. Over years, we evolved a computer program, and that gives you a printout for every panel of the sail. And here is the finished sail, which was a very successful sail. There's not a wrinkle in it. The shape is consistent on every seam, top to bottom. Very satisfying to have made it.
The club originally started, there was a few gentlemen. The club was run actually by those members. The Commodore was in charge. So we have grown 3 times in a period of 70 years. Our membership has grown incredibly. So you can see that over the years, with the growth of the membership and the level of service that the club is now providing to its members, the need for professional staff is incredibly important. This club, even though, as I said, relies heavily on its volunteers, could not do so with only volunteers. Currently, we're about 1,550 members in total. We have associate member class, which is about 40% of the makeup of the club. Our annual revenues approach $6 million. We are very seasonal. Opening day, Memorial Day through Labor Day, September and October. This clubhouse on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday is just packed. Management is faced with a dilemma every year where they've got to go out and find seasonal help. They've got to get them in here, train them in a very short period of time, and hope that they stay through the season. The Yacht Club tries to maintain a full-service operation for its members. It's not just for somebody to have a boat in the water. We do 100 or more weddings, anniversaries, class reunions, retirement parties, business meetings, all of which are sponsored by members of the Erie Yacht Club. So we have a wonderful, wonderful catering manager, Elizabeth Dugan. She makes everything work perfectly. She is out on the floor. If she has to bus tables, whatever it takes to make your experience positive, she's doing it. The catering side of business does generate a little bit extra revenue for us, so it's a positive thing there, and it also keeps the club full. It helps us keep constant number of staff people. employed throughout the course of the year so that we're not short-staffed when we go into our seasonal business. We're thrilled to have a great professional staff currently at the club. So in addition to payroll taxes and sales tax, which we generate an immense amount of, we have about $150,000 in property taxes that we pay on the buildings at the Erie Yacht Club. And so, yes, we're always on the outlook for new members, and it's just critical because you come in as a member, you're here for a few years, you get older, you get sick, whatever, you move, we need somebody to take your spot. 20 plus years ago, many of our friends were members at the Erie Yacht Club. We were coming down a lot, and we were not members, and it didn't seem right. So my wife and I agreed that we would join an associate member class. And we have literally spent hundreds of hours every season on that boat, whether it's at the dock, with our friends from the club at various events, traveling. We have our kids that go out on the boat and love it. And now our grandkids that love it as well. And it's just a great place to enjoy the family and the water.
The dock project had to be done in sections because every year we had to put boats in and use it. It was about a 5 or 6 year project from start to end.
Past Commodore John Morosky was really in charge of the project. And it was John's idea to save us a lot of money to use volunteer crew members, Erie Yacht Club membership, putting the docks together. Launching the docks into the basin, putting them in place, that was all Yacht Club members, volunteers. It was all new electricity.
Our whole infrastructure.
All new plumbing.
Gas and electricity around the whole club was replaced.
The end result are some of the best docks on the Great Lakes.
Each of the Commodores have brought their own skill sets and have brought their own experiences to make the club unique to what it is.
You look at the people that have served in the position of Commodore, and they've put a lot of time in.
We have over 100 plus Commodores that have worked very hard to make the club what it is. They're all members, they donate their time. All the work and all the time that those people have put in over time is very, very important.
In 2021, Erie citizens celebrated the 4th of July with fireworks at their bicentennial tower. The same year, the Yacht Club membership voted to borrow money for the second renovation of the 3rd clubhouse.
So some would ask, why spend multiple millions of dollars renovating a clubhouse? We have a basin, that's where we keep our boats, and we're a boating community. Why do we need a clubhouse? Well, a clubhouse is a vehicle. A clubhouse is where we meet. It's somewhat like a church to the boating community, quite frankly. And so it's where we come to do what we do, where we have fun.
Back in 2009, Holly Wolford O'Hare and Julie Arthurs had come up with the idea that we should start a foundation that could possibly help the Rayburn School, along with putting a community foundation together that could help other boating education facilities on the bay. John Dunn thought it was a great idea and started to get this program going. He got all the licenses, and we got the foundation as a 501c3 going, and we put an original board together of 7 people. Now, the boathouse is a more interesting story. He said, well, we got to raise some money. At this point, I got Ross Rechtenwald involved, a really great architect and friend. He started drawing up what he thought we should do. So there was a moment in time where Mark Rickloff had come to us and said to me, I could be interested in naming the boathouse. And the big question was, how much are we going to ask Mr. Rickloff for? Let's ask him for $500,000. And Mark just went, I'd like to do that. From 120 people, we raised $1,200,000. The club put in $400,000 in the dock. We have a $1,600,000 boathouse. It's primarily dedicated to sailing and boating, and then we've got our big Rayburn sailing program with over 220 kids in it and adults. We're promoting education. We're promoting youth intercollegiate sailing and intercollegiate competition here for qualifying to go to the nationals. The boathouse is called the Rickloff Community Boathouse for a reason. It's not the Yacht Club's boathouse, it's the community's boathouse. We have this big boathouse party. Today, we're bringing in almost $100,000. Half of that's going to grants, and the other half is growing to build the funds. And it's been very successful. It's something that the Erie Yacht Club can participate in that has a meaning for the community.
The Dreamer saga started in 2004. We were in Buffalo at Rich Marine Sales, and sitting on shore was Dreamer with all the paint stripped off of her, weathering in the sun. And I thought, what in the world is going on here that this beautiful boat is just laying there, rotting? Eventually, in 2006, we decided to buy it and rebuild it. We trucked the boat to the Erie Yacht Club on June 1st, 2006. We knew by that time that we had to replace the keel, the horn timber, the rudder post, part of the forefoot, some planking. We did a fairly complete rebuild of the boat. We spent the winter continuing the rebuild, and had her sailing in May of 2007.
The Department of Environmental Protection released the findings that the quality of the water in the bay had been greatly improved. We had our very first bay swim on June 28th, 2008. Pat Davis was really the person who came up with this idea. We had so many community people come together, and I think that was the beauty of the bay swim. This was supposed to be 1 year to celebrate the bay, a swimmable bay. Our swimmers were incredible. Daughters and sons and fathers said they did the bay swim together. They were every size, shape, young and old and out of shape and in shape. I mean, we had everything. It's the joy of watching these people get on the ramp and accomplish this. It was just such a sense of pride for everybody to have pulled this off. It was truly incredible how it all came together. And most of all, it was a beautiful marriage between the Presque Bay and the Erie Yacht Club. What we do here matters, and what we do here is very important. We gave thousands and thousands of dollars back to the community through the bay swim. It's all about community, it's all about giving back, and I'm really proud about what this club does.
In 1985, past Commodore John Ashby and club volunteers began an annual tradition, the Erie Yacht Club Charity Regatta. The idea was to have a fun sailboat race and raise money for the local charities at the same time. The Charity Regatta, members and volunteers raised over $1.1 million. That money was donated to the American Red Cross of Western Pennsylvania, along with other local charities.
Maureen and I were at a volunteer event for the Erie Yacht Club about 6 years ago. We discussed the importance of Frolic on the Bay, and so I have been involved with Frolic on the Bay for 5 years now.
I've been involved with Frolic for about 20 years. Frolic on the Bay has existed since 1990. This makes the 35th year for the Erie Yacht Club to sponsor this event.
Frolic on the Bay services individuals with physical disabilities, cognitive disabilities, and those from disadvantaged situations. We also have sometimes people in wheelchairs, different physical disabilities, other people who have never ever set foot on a boat before, or have never even seen Presque Bay. Then we start meeting in January, and we have a timeline that runs every month from January until the date of the event.
Tom Daly. He solicits captains are volunteering their time, their boat, the gas to take guests out on a boat ride. The boat ride is always different. I think they look at the guests they have on their boat and decide what they can do.
We have probably at least 70 just Erie Yacht Club volunteers, people who act as the captain and the first mates for the boats, people that do tasks such as greeting people when they come in the door, registering people, passing out the hats, the water, the snacks, escorting people to the boats, helping individuals on the boats and off the boats, coming back and helping them with the picnics, serving up food, cleaning up.
When I started 20 years ago to volunteer for Frolic, I would go out on the boats and the guests would take a picnic lunch with them in a bag. We now do full lunch on our brand new deck. It's covered. It's very nice to support all these individuals. The club really supports Frolic on the Bay with the day of the event, our setup, our cleanup. The food is donated by members who own businesses and they sponsor the event.
I find a lot of joy in seeing the faces of these individuals who have experienced something that becomes a lifelong memory for them.
I've always really enjoyed volunteering at the Erie Yacht Club, and I like seeing the kids' faces when they come and enjoy their day here.
We have some of the same organizations that have been involved since the inception. So, for example, the Barber National Institute is one of those. We have individuals who were on those boats 20 years ago who are still coming back every year, and it's a highlight of their summer. I found as a member that I was drawn to how the club has brought children together, families together, the community together. So that was an impetus for me to want to volunteer because I already saw it happening.
I started boating when I was in high school.
I started shortly after Matt's friend upgraded to a Ranger 26 and started racing and sailing with him on that. Caitlin stayed in the sailing industry. She lives in Newport, Rhode Island. She's our oldest. She just came off working for American Magic in the America's Cup over in Barcelona, Spain. Cutter's here in Erie. He works with his dad, and he's an avid sailor, ice boater. And Jack is living in Washington, D.C. We'd sail out on Sundays. Go out around the point to Beach 11 and throw the hook, and we'd all swim in or row the dinghy in, and we'd spend the day out at the beach.
A lot of the times were after a whole weekend on the boat, sailing back up the bay in the sunset, feeling so good about that. The kids lounging around, wishing it could continue. With the children, I noticed that they have such self-confidence.
They all took the sailing lessons down here. The Rayburn Sailing School has made a big difference in our children's lives.
We started out on a 20-foot sailboat, and I had 3 kids and we had a dog. We got a slightly bigger boat and another slightly bigger boat. We were finally able to have a boat that we could all sleep inside and travel on. And it was a tradition in our family to take 1 month every year and go on a boat, go sailing. We loved it. And the kids grew up, and then they had kids, and those kids ended up on our boat loving it as well. My oldest grandson, who's 33, he learned to sail with me and went to Northwestern on a partial scholarship for sailing. He's a PhD physicist and a university professor. And I sailed all over the place with my family. For me, my happy memories of sailing have my children and grandchildren in them. I had great grandkids sailing on our boat. It's like broad reaching on a beautiful night, watching the moon rise, and watching my kids sit on the rail. It was just, it's a wonderful family thing.
If you look at the human desire for the water, if you measure our blood, it's basically seawater. Part of our human existence is the water and the forces around the water.
When wind and water come together, something special happens. Something powerful happens. And the same thing happens when people come together.
We've made lifelong friends. I always knew that the club was special. And all of the things that we do here, I will never forget. I'll never forget all the great times we've had at the club. Life is precious. You only live once. I truly love the Erie Yacht Club and all of the things that it has meant to me. What we do here is important. We're here for one reason: the love of life. What we do here matters.
you.